G'day, all Benny from East West. Going to have a look at silver in this video. Okay, so silver, like gold, has had a pretty good move this week. So let's just jump in and have a look at it. So this is kind of where we, sorry about that. This is kind of where we left off last week. So we were looking at this sort of trading range that the market was stuck in, and we couldn't get through the retracement, and then lo and behold, what's happened? We've broken down. So same sort of thing with gold here. I mean, if you're going to call this the trading range where we sort of, this has been the top, this was the low, then we bounced around, we didn't really do much. I mean, maybe you could tighten that up, but I don't think there's an exact way to sort of define it, for me at least, but I think the point being here is the similar phenomenon has happened here. If this was the trading range, when we broke, we very quickly expanded it out 100%. Now, we went a little bit over, but this is a good example. Just because gold looked very precise, it doesn't, don't expect precision out of this stuff, because it's often, a lot of the time it is precise, but you can get some sloppy sort of overthrow. I mean, this is just puking out probably of people who are caught long. Okay? But what this provided us with, the idea of the range expansion. I mean, when you look at, say, even it lined it up. So it's this move here. If you take the top of this move and we go to this, okay. Now, if we project off the top of whatever that range was, which is here, what we also got, even though it's very, very steep because we got this, but we got pretty much the one-to-one move which lined up with that range expansion. Okay, so that kind of tied off pretty well together. And also, what happened, what terminated down here? Well, I think we pointed this out last week. If we're just coming off the bottom of where I think the trend really got going, this run, we came right back into the retracement zone, okay, which tied up with this structure here. All right, back just below the 57, so between the 50 and the 61.8. So I point this out because just because all that lined up, that's not necessarily a spot where you're rushing in to buy. But what I would suggest is that would be a horrible place to set a stop. Because if you've got all that confluence lining up there, I wouldn't necessarily say that you put a buy order there and that you're going to buy the market when it gets here, because there's so much stuff lining up. But what I would say is don't put a stop. Don't be long and put a stop there. It's just not a good place to put it. Either stop out up here or stop out way down here, but don't stop there. Don't stop out in this zone, because it's the highest chance that it'll reverse in here, okay? And if it does reverse in here, you'll end up selling the bottom. You'll end up chasing back in. You'll probably get stuck the other way. You'll revenge trade. You'll make all the classic mistakes, and you'll tie yourself in knots, and you'll end up selling where you probably should have been looking to initiate a long. Now, this is, to me, I'll just clean this up, okay? Because this is now spilt milk under the bridge. We don't need to worry about it as much. But to me, I'm seeing this sort of thing. This looks a little bit better than the same formation in gold in terms of the counter trend. But I'm still not sitting here thinking I'm going to go long silver. I still think that it's not telling me, what the market's telling me is not that. Okay, so if I'm just taking from the top to the bottom, well, I'm nowhere near this 50, but if I come in here off these peaks, I'm getting pretty close. If I come off the last peak, I'm right on it. So, this was really the move that took us down. Okay, that was the move that broke us out of that range, and this is what tumbled. What have we got since coming back? 3 ways back up to the 50. Once again, if you're going short, horrible place to stop out. Don't do it, okay? But what can I say? I mean, if you just go through the market, you'll find it pivots there all the time. That's why I say just don't stop out there. Don't necessarily short it. I mean, you can if you want, if that's your belief, but just don't stop there. Just don't stop out of a long there. It's just, or don't stop out of a short there. It's just not a good place to put a stop. But look, just look at this, okay? So, can we dolly up this the same way? I mean, when we think about, that sort of that one-to-one move, I mean, where would that take us? I mean, if we just line, I haven't got that very exact. I probably just need to come in there. If we just took that, just mark it off. Okay, pretty rough. But, as this sits, maybe we've ticked over that a little bit. So can this still be considered a bear flag? can we still consider this sort of move possible? In short, I think so. I'm not really seeing anything that would disqualify that as a potential candidate to happen. And just as I nip out here to a 4-hour, I mean, I think we talked about this maybe last week. It's just coming off this double bottom, taking the retracement off this double bottom to the peak. Where does that 1-to-1 move? And it could go short, it could go long. But, where does that 1-to-1 move put us? Okay, right back into the retracement zone, and it probably ties in pretty nicely with these two peaks here. You can see how it almost doesn't quite dissect them, but you get the point, right? I mean, all of a sudden, if you're going long, if you're trying a long down here, that's a horrible place to stop out. Either you stop out of, depending on where you go long, you're either stopping out well above or you're stopping out well below. Don't stop out there. Terrible place to stop out. Okay, because the chances are that the market at this point will try to find its feet and go on with the move. Now let's look at the move. Let's zoom out a little bit to look at the move. So for me, just looking at this, I mean, you've got a pretty choppy, sideways sort of range here. Okay, with what looks like a decent sort of spring where it's a failed attempt to break down, even though we've retested the bottom of this range. But for me, just thinking about what I see here is a very strong impulsive move, and just generally speaking, what I'd be looking for is 3 waves back into the retracement zone to test before we then moved on further. And then all of a sudden, we're back talking about challenging these big tops sort of, round this sort of $30 mark. Okay, but I may tighten that up a little bit. But to me, we might just need and that sort of would also tie in. So maybe it doesn't get back far. Maybe it just comes back to test the top of this. But you can see how if we did get a move back down here, we're just coming back to test, classic TA, where old support becomes old resistance becomes new support into the retracement zone, 3 waves back after an impulse. The expectation would be that we're going to go further. To me, that just looks pretty simple. And the way that it's going together on a short term on the hourly, to me, just suggests that is not an unlikely thing to happen. Okay, for all the reasons that I've just spelt out. All right, so that is just how I'm putting it together. Let's just clean this up a bit. Now, the danger would be, and the way you'd have to just be careful, because you've got to think about this two ways. You can think about this retracement, which is just giving us what we want to see for right here and now, because it's made a nice touch. But of course, the danger is that we're playing off this, and the market might get further back. Okay, and you can see how this would also go together quite nicely, because if we got back here to this 50, then all of a sudden we're back testing the bottom of that previous range that we had here. Okay, and that would also tie in nicely. But I think the one thing that would make this quite nice if we sort of did something like this is that if we got that next move down into the 1-to-1 style scenario, when we're talking about a bigger move, is that we'd start to bring the 61.8% of that swing that we're talking about off the double bottom here back at the start of 2024 back into play before we could, what you would hope to see. What you would hope to see in this scenario is that you started to get that bullish divergence. Let's just go out to a daily here, because you probably just need to look at this on a bigger picture. I mean, what you can see here is that the RSI has had its cycle of traveling up through this rally, and now we're coming back off. So what you would hope to see is, I would expect as this comes down, the RSI is going to come back down here to finish off its cycle of moving down, and then you want to see some bullish divergence creeping in, sort of like we did here. And that would make you think, okay, we are set for the next leg of the rally, but there's still a long way to go. So my view of silver remains the same as my view of gold. We are in a corrective bounce from the main sell-off. Okay, we're in a corrective bounce of the correction, if that makes sense. So just to clean it up, what I mean is, and I'll just clean this chart up. What I mean is basically we have had, let's take that off. We have had this run, and we need to correct that. We've done the first leg of the correction. We'll have a corrective bounce of this move back down, and then we'll come down for the third leg of the correction like that. Once that move's completed, that to me, and as long as we hold, we start to see the classic signs of diverging, the market holding. On smaller time frames, the market starting to trend higher. That to me would then suggest that we are set
for the next run, and that would hopefully take us above $30. That would be how I'd look at it. But you know, there's a fair bit of water's got to go under the bridge before that sort of thing's recognised. So let's just see how this plays out. That's just a hunch, so I don't know. All I can see on the hard right edge is that's what looks like is going to happen to me. So that is it for this week for silver. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.